So hello everyone, welcome back. So for this session, what we're going to do is, since we have already started to play with the code, for people who have registered formally through Eventbrite and have used the paid options, you'll have a link to the DSX experience where you can get the code and you can play with it. For people who are watching the stream online and want to get access to the code, you'll have to upgrade the ticket to a paid ticket, and I've sent out instructions for people who have registered on Eventbrite. So for this session, what we'll do is Greg Filler, who works with IBM DSX team, is going to introduce you on how to use the DSX and the various features in the DSX. It's basically a platform to help you run all your Python or R code, and including Spark code. And we have put all the examples and the case studies we have put together for this workshop on the data science experience. That way, you don't have to install anything. You can just use your browser, go in, and you can play with the code. You can also download the code and do other things. And Greg's going to talk about the various things you could do with the DSX in the next half an hour or so. Okay, so Greg, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sri. Hi, everybody. So my name is Greg Phil. I work as a product manager on data science experience. So what this is, if you haven't heard of it before, it's basically a workbench for data scientists to use that has all your tools in one place. So if you have an account, or if you don't have an account already, you can go to datascience.ibm.com and you can sign in. So if you haven't signed in already, you can get a free account, which is for 30 days for free. You can also log in here, and once you log in, you'll be taken to this screen. So when you first land here, you're going to see the community page. So what we saw with data scientists is that data scientists are constantly learning. You always have to stay current on the latest research and trends and everything that's happening. So what we have here is a lot of articles and blogs and tutorials to help you learn about new techniques. In addition to that, we have notebooks available for you. So notebooks are kind of core to everything that we're doing with data science experience, and at IBM we see them as the future for where people are going to be working for data science. So we have Jupyter notebooks that are integrated into DSX, and what you have in the community here is a group of notebooks that have been created by the data scientists at IBM to help you learn a specific use case, or working with a certain kind of technology or something like that. We even have a pretty simple one on deep learning. If that's still up here, yeah. So we have for image classification, doing the MNIST data set. So kind of a standard, just an intro. But in addition to the community and the learning aspect of data science, we also have the tools that you need to be productive. So the way we have that is that everything is available inside projects. So if I go to my account that I'm logged in here, and if I go to projects in the top navigation here, I'm going to see all my projects listed out. What you may notice here right away is that it's not just my projects, but also projects I'm collaborating with other people on. So in addition to data scientists always needing to learn, we also see that it's a team sport, and that collaboration is required to really be productive and be successful when you're working on a data science project. So projects are a way in DSX that you can organize your analytical assets, things like Jupyter notebooks, and a way to organize your data assets. So whether it's flat files that you're storing in the cloud or database connections, you can have those stored together so everything is contained, and so you don't have data all over the place and collaborators, and you don't know who's accessing the data and all that kind of stuff. So we're keeping all this contained in this construct of having a project. So I'll open up one of my, I have a few deep learning notebooks available here, so I'm going to go into one of mine. So this is what it looks like once you're inside a project. So you can see my notebooks are listed here. I have some information. This is kind of my landing page, so I have an overview of what's happening in a project. If I go into one of my notebooks, so that's probably if you're just getting started and you just want to jump in and start coding, you just create a new project, and then you can start adding notebooks there. So I'm going to go into this notebook that I have where it's a style transfer notebook. So it's using a trained neural network model, the VGG16. So I'm not sure if that'll be covered, but so this is just a sample notebook for something you can execute. And on the topic of deep learning libraries and doing deep learning inside DSX, we support that. So for computation, what we all have available is Spark as a service. And so for free, you're getting a small Spark cluster that you're executing code on. So that's good if you need to scale up and work with data sets that aren't working in memory. For deep learning, what we have in the future, we're looking at how to support GPUs to give you the faster computation that you need when you're training deep networks. But for now, we do have deep learning libraries available. They're just kind of used on smaller problems and kind of, since we're only using CPUs. And yeah, so what I wanted to show here was that, so on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see my Jupyter Notebook. But what I opened up on the right here is what we call the Maker Palette, and that's on the far right side of the toolbar. And what I can do here is actually search for content. So the community that I showed you when I first logged in, you can search for content there. So if I'm working on something and I get stuck or I need some help on something, I can do a search here and see what comes up. So for example, I just typed in deep learning and I have all my different types of content available for me. So I just went straight to documentation because I wanted to show that, I unchecked it. So under the documentation, I wanted to show you that we have some pre-installed libraries. So we have TensorFlow, Theano, Keras, and Lasagna. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but that's so we have those 4 libraries installed. So that's pretty nice for just getting something started really quickly. Because especially if you're on a Windows machine, if you've looked into installing TensorFlow, it can be a bit tricky. So it's nice just to help you get started. So as you see, if you've used Jupyter Notebooks before, it looks very similar to what you have here. And I can even go full screen here, and you see that you're basically just working in Jupyter. So this notebook has a lot of content. Basically, you can see, and I'm assuming since when I came in, there was a notebook that was being reviewed. So I'm assuming everyone's familiar with Jupyter Notebooks and how they work. Really nice for mixing together your documentation and comments along with your code. And just to show the last picture in this notebook, because it's pretty cool, is that with style transfer, I did the Incredible Hulk as a mosaic from the Renaissance. So that was pretty neat. So just kind of going out of full screen mode. What I also wanted to show, so I already mentioned something from the toolbar, this Maker palette that's available. A few other things that can help you as you're working in DSX. We have the ability to publish to GIST or GitHub. So if you're using GitHub for version control, you can connect a repository to your DSX account and you can start pushing notebooks. So it's a really good way to track versions. We also have the ability to share. So any notebook that you're working on, you can enable sharing and get a persistent link to it. So that's pretty nice and something you don't get if you're working with Jupyter just locally because those files live there. So here you have a hosted version and you can actually dictate what you want in terms of content to be shown. So if you have sensitive cells, like your credentials for a service or something, you can hide that from the output so that won't be shared. Then looking at this, we also have a scheduler that's built in. So if you need your notebook to run every day or at a certain frequency, so we have anywhere from yearly down to hourly, and any kind of anywhere between, you can set that up and it'll just be scheduled to kick off and execute at that frequency. So that's really nice. That's something that's just built into it. Also, just to show you, so on the topic of version control, we also have built-in version control inside DSX. So if you're not a GitHub user or you just want to use something directly built into the tool, you can save versions here and go back to them at any time. So that's also nice that it's built in there. And you can open those up like this so you can see a link for what prior versions look like or revert back to that version. We also have commenting built in, so there's no comments on this notebook, but you can have a conversation around your notebook, basically that lives attached to it. And the cool thing is that whenever someone leaves a comment for you, you have notifications that are coming through here that you'll get notified about. And then finally, lastly, kind of most importantly, I guess, is actually you have all your data assets in this tab. So I don't have any data here, but I can show you what this would look like. Oh, this isn't my computer. Okay, so but if I added a CSV here, you have all your data that's in your project directly available to you inside a notebook. So it's really convenient if you're coding and you realize you want to pull on another file or you want to access a database connection or something like that. You can do all that from just this side panel. So that makes it really convenient. Yeah, so that's how notebooks look like in DSX. Basically, everything that you're used to with Jupyter, some nice extras that have been built in, even with libraries. So we pre-install Anaconda, the Anaconda distribution, if you're using Python, for example. If you're using R, we have a lot of libraries that are pre-installed as well. In addition to that, you can also install anything you want. So pip installing or installing from Crayon, anything like that. Even from GitHub, you can go and pull a module and get it installed on your notebook. So all that stuff, it's very open and flexible in terms of what you can do. So this is kind of it at the project level for what I want to show. Let me see here.
So how big is space allocate for every user? Do you have a CPU and space limitation for DSX?
Yeah, so what you're allocated, so not really on the project management, so you have that for yourself, but more in terms of compute, that's where you have a service, that's where we use Spark service to do the computation for you. So that's really dictating like the amount of performance that you have. Is that your question about the performance? Or?
When I go to DSX, I want to start and then they told me that I'm running out of resources.
Does it say something about 10 kernels maybe?
So you talk about that I need to go to my board mix to deliver unused services because I'm running out of services.
Yes. So when you have yeah, so just a quick now. So IBMers, we give a certain amount of free services we can use in Bluemix, and when you create DSX, it's going to create 2 services for you: one that's Spark and one that's object storage for your storage, so storing your files. So if you don't have 2 open spots, then you'll get that warning message. But we can chat afterwards about setting that up. Yeah. But yeah, if you're new to Bluemix or if you have more services, then it shouldn't be an issue. Yes.
I haven't used Bluemix for a while, but I do recall there isn't a configuration you have to set up before you can run anything.
For a data science experience? Yeah. Well, you have to create an account, and once you create an account, that will initialize the services you need. But after the services are set up, you don't have to do anything else.
So behind the scenes, it's talking about allocation memory, all that stuff. There's nowhere that you have to set that up. Once your account is set, then you're given a certain amount of storage, or
yes. So with a free account, So with a free account for DSX, you have 2 node Spark cluster that's by default, and then 5 gigabytes of object storage by default. So if you've used Bluemix before, you've seen with different applications you can change the memory that you're allocating for it. So that's separate. So that's if you're deploying an application that you want to be hosted somewhere. This is a service that's running on Bluemix. So all of that kind of memory allocation is taken care of kind of behind the scenes. So
if you want to increase it, what do you do?
so you can increase the storage. Yeah, so there's 2 options. So if you want to increase your Spark computation, what you have available for you there's an enterprise Spark plan that has 30 executors rather than 2. So that's the one option that you can pay for that, and then same for object storage, you can pay for increasing that. So basically at the free tier you get just smaller versions, and then if you want to enhance it or add on to that, you can. Any other questions? Okay. So the other thing so the other thing that we have here in DSX is RStudio. So I'm not sure if anyone uses R, but basically this is RStudio open source server that you can run directly. It's running in the cloud here for you. So this has a storage system as well, so you can kind of work independently inside RStudio if you want to when this gets fired up. And
so what happens with that? Is there an instance, or is there like a Docker container getting fired up with that particular server?
Exactly. So you have a Docker container that's running for you with your own RStudio. And as you can see, when I first logged in here, or when I first opened this up, it has my environment, it has my files open. So it's not like it's a fresh start every time you're going here. You come in and it remembers the states from when you left it.
It's your own Docker container.
Exactly. So it's
not like Jupyter. Was that a Jupyter Hub or just a Jupyter session, including in a Docker container? The one you used
I would have to check. I don't believe we're using Jupyter Hub, but I could check on that. We're using containers essentially to kind of to organize everything. Yeah. And just to mention here on this one, if anyone uses RShiny for building out any web apps, so this supports Shiny as well. So you can build out anything like that directly here. So that's a nice feature as well to have. And just really quickly, just to show you kind of what's to come and what's in beta right now, I'm going to go back to one of my projects just to show you some cool work that we're doing on visualizing models. And so there's actually a team that I work with here in Chicago where we're doing model visualization. One of the models that we're working on is neural networks. So I just wanted to bring that up pretty quickly. Okay. Okay. So I was showing notebooks which are available today. Something that's in a beta right now that's going to be coming soon in the future is something that we call flows or data flows. And that's where you can actually use a GUI to drag and drop operators that you want to do on data. So let's say data ingest or data transformations, data cleaning, and things like that. This is all done with drag and drop with nodes operators that are pre-defined in terms of what they can do. So this is an example of a data flow. So we have you're reading in from cloud object storage on the far left here. And then we are setting a type. So I'm basically saying there which one's my inputs, what's my predictor, what am I trying to classify. And then I'm doing a select statement to select, basically doing a filter. And then I build a couple models here. So if anyone's used SPSS Modeler before or seen that, this should look very familiar to you. But what I want to show was that this is the neural network model that we train on this data set. And that trains this model nugget that I can use for scoring on new data. And what I have is the option here to view this model. And so you can see here, so this is output that we have that's built out for different algorithms and different models that we support in this tool. So this is kind of interesting. So you have model information, which gives you a table basically telling you some kind of meta information about the model. You get predictor importance, so you can see, based on the class that you're trying to predict your output, which predictors are most important that you should be looking at the most, and kind of equally important is what are the least important. So things maybe you might want to get rid of. We have a confusion matrix available for you. So these are the kind of things that you would routinely do when you're validating a model, but we just give you one place that has everything for you. Yeah, that's a good question. So that's an algorithm that's carried over from SPSS. So if you're not familiar with SPSS, it's I don't know if it's coming up. I think statistics is coming up on 50 years, close to that, for how long it's been around. But it's a really old statistical program that IBM acquired in like 2007, I believe, around then. But so basically, that's an algorithm that comes from this. And so I could check on if you're interested in more details, I could look into that. But basically, they have a proprietary algorithm that they use to determine this predictor importance. And then the last thing to kind of show something sexy and shiny is this network diagram. So if you're working on neural networks, this is let's see here. Okay, so I need to zoom out a little bit. But basically, so this is a visualization of a neural network, and I can zoom in on it if I want, but at the bottom I have weights where I can set thresholds for weights that I want to see. So the far right is very positive, the far left is very negative. And so if I start moving the slider down, I can see, okay, which of my weights are very negative, and if I want to kind of dig into that, I can zoom in here and take a look at that. Also in the same way, I have my importance as well. So if I care about more important or less important features as it relates to my predicted field, then I can use these sliders here to adjust that. So this is kind of just a taste of what's coming in terms of like future for DSX and kind of more tools that we're adding to the tool set, so it makes it easier to work on data science projects.
But the importance is only like for the first layer, not like you don't have an importance for other layers.
Exactly. Yeah. So you just have your importance at this main layer because you know what your predictors are. But yeah, at the hidden layers, you don't have any real insight in that. So
this isn't like a deep neural network.
Yeah, this is Sorry, this is a single layer. But yeah, if it was deeper, then you're right. Then yeah.
You have something that
Presumably, right? You can just wiggle
you take it away.
and see how much it has in the output, and if it's a lot, then it's
Yeah, I mean, you can use the weight, the higher weight is more important than the lower weight. That's a simple method, but you can.
that's specific to neural networks. I think you can probably come up with a generic thing for any.
Yeah, for
model,
this
right?
for this model, but for different model, you probably want to use feature selection. Try to do different things.
I mean, at that point, you can computationally, potentially even use Spark or something like that to try out like different models and figure out like which optimal combination.
Definitely.
Forward search, backward search, especially if you're not, each feature is independent.
If someone wants to, I guess like, is network in there?
So
pull out. I mean, I know it's in beta.
Oh yeah. So it's in beta. So that would be coming the ability to share. Yeah. So the idea is that these visualizations that you would create, you would be able to also bring them as project level assets, right? Because those are kind of just maybe not, you're doing your work in notebooks, but you want to save those outputs. So the idea is that those would be project assets, and you could share those with a link, an iframe, things like that. Yeah, so.
And that's all written in SPSS code?
So that one, yeah, so that has an SPSS backend. Yeah, so that's.
You can match SPSS in Python, and like, can you have like a nugget which, you can like code in Studio?
Yeah, so there's a lot of, we can talk offline. So there's a lot of interesting things like that we're looking into to see what's the best combination of using SPSS and other kinds of frameworks to kind of make that kind of work more easy. So yeah. But for those in the room who are new to DSX, if you're going to be doing some coding, is that enough to kind of get you started in terms of, and I can, if we can chat afterwards, but yeah, it's basically you create a project inside there. You can add a notebook very easily, and then any data you're working with, any data files, you can just drag and drop that into a project, and it's pretty easy to get started. Cool. All right. So I think that was all I wanted to cover. Should I do anything here?
Is your mosaic sample publicly available?
Oh, I can send a link to you. I don't actually. So there's a link here that. Let's see if this opens up. I did get it from GitHub, so I can share it with you.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
But do you require a special library, or that the library only in the DSX, or you?
It's just using TensorFlow.
Okay, so whatever TensorFlow.
So the TensorFlow that's in DSX will run this. Yep.
Cool. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah.